So Bud Light, one of America's most popular beer brands, has taken an absolute hammering in terms of sales. The impetus for this was a certain Dylan Mulvaney, friend of the show, trans TikTok influencer, was essentially given a kind of sponsorship deal, had all these personalised Bud Light beer brands, Bud Light beer cans made up with his face and all that stuff. And the American drinker is not happy about this, I think it's fair to say.
Now, I was surprised by this. So the Bud Light boycott, which got underway at the beginning of last month in response to this particular Dylan Mulvaney ad in particular, and also really accelerated, I think, when this clip of their vice president for marketing, whose name escapes me at the moment, was there talking about how she was brought in to sort out the brand's fratty image and to make it more inclusive and so on. So I think it's very quickly became another kind of front in the battle against sort of woke capitalism, if you like. People felt lectured by this particular...
Definitely. That's such a direct diss on the consumer. You know, you're too fratty, let's get in a new group. We can't stand you, let's appeal to some other more enlightened, you know, more culturally switched on people.
It was so explicit, and that was one of the things that I think got a lot of people behind it. You started to see these kind of anecdotal reports of people went down to their, you know, local bars, whatever journalistic outlet they work at, and people aren't buying as much Bud Light, but then it actually started to become quite real. So I think on last week, on year-on-year sales, they were down 26%, and also the sales of like Miller Lite and Coors Light, the competitors, have miraculously shot up as well. So it's very clear that it's had an impact. Whereas a lot of people said that it was just a kind of conservative tantrum that wasn't really going to go anywhere. And whilst you don't want to turn it into the sort of Boston Tea Party some American right-wingers are trying to do at the moment, it's a very interesting and I think positive agitation against woke capitalism and this insistence that politics has to colonise all areas of life, even when you're just trying to like watch sports and have a drink. And also that it's constantly kind of directed at you to lecture you about your own lifestyle, your own values. And people have just had enough of this. I'm not saying this is the start of some great revolution necessarily, but it's another sign of that enduring irritation, agitation against all that kind of pieties, I guess, that are coming at them from all directions.
Definitely. I think one thing that's really important to make clear is that, you know, a lot of people who are opposed to this boycott or whatever, they will say this is transphobic. There's a trans person marketing this, marketing Bud Light, and that's why people are angry, because they're bigots and they're hateful and they can't stand it. But really, you know, Dylan Mulvaney represents so much more than that. This is not just a trans person. This is someone who is documenting their life as a girl, not even as a woman, as a girl, who their videos are so insulting to women. I mean, actually, I'm surprised that maybe this says something about who these companies are branded at, but I'm surprised that the Nike advert or Dylan Mulvaney's little Nike promo didn't do more damage, because you could see in that, you know, he was wearing these Nike leggings, kicking up his heels, doing a ridiculous parody of a woman. I think that's the one that insulted a lot more women, certainly. But still, yeah, you know, it's what this whole ideology represents, rather than a single person.
Also, Dylan Mulvaney is essentially America's preeminent trans activist. I mean, that might sound ridiculous, but interviewing Joe Biden at the White House, demanding to know if he's fully on board with sterilising children, essentially being at the centre of the culture war over gender ideology. Dylan Mulvaney is not just a trans person going about his business. I mean, this is someone who has become a very politicised figure. The fact that he's a slightly ridiculous figure is just testament to the slightly ridiculous ideology to which he is pinned, but that's neither here nor there. I think people object to the Dylan Mulvaney Instagram ads in the same way that people objected to when Colin Kaepernick got that Nike endorsement. It wasn't as many people, but people didn't hate that because he's black. I mean, there's all sorts of black people who have Nike endorsements, of course. The reason it irritated people is because he was very associated with Black Lives Matter, which, as we all know, is not a straightforwardly anti-racist campaign. It's an identitarian, the year zero, all sorts of different things which people really object to. So I think the attempt to just bat this away as, they just hate this ad because Dylan Mulvaney is transgender, are just trying to discredit it, basically. This is an irritation, as I say, not just with the politics that Dylan Mulvaney represents, but the intrusion of that in politics into everything. Like, you can't escape it wherever you go, because it's so important that you're brought on board with the programme, and that's what people are pissed off about.
And it even extends beyond the branding. I mean, if you think about some of the battles that Disney is having with Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, you know, Disney was making threats around laws that have nothing to do with Disney, around this so-called "Don't Say Gay" bill, which would have done would have restricted teaching to trans issues and around trans issues and sexuality education to kids just younger than 8. And yet Disney weighs in, thinks it's its job to tell the public, tell the elected governor what laws he should pass and shouldn't pass. And it's bizarre because nowadays you have so-called progressives lining up alongside big corporates, saying that big corporates should have the right to dictate politics, and elected representatives should go hang.
No, I think that's a really important point, because these kind of woke capitalism skirmishes are not just about who's fronting what advert, as you say.
Yeah.
They feel compelled to take political positions nowadays. Now, people like to dismiss that as woke washing, or they're just trying to make... They don't have to do this. They go out of their way to do it. But at the same time, it is very hypocritical. So I think one of the most risible woke big brands of recent years was Ben & Jerry's. A few years ago, they had a go at Priti Patel over migration policy in a long Twitter thread. And yet again, whenever you see one of these things, just hop on Google and type in their name and controversy, and you will see that these people are not white. In their case, they had actually been hauled over the coals for mistreating migrant workers, as it turned out. All of these things always take place. So there's definitely an element of hypocrisy, of course, but at the same time, these companies are not only trying to re-educate the masses, as it were, but they do feel compelled to wield genuine political power on top and to inflict that on elected representatives. So, and why more people aren't irritated by that, I really don't know.